Jason, what's this face?
That is a sour, you called it grapes. I'm going to call it sour lemon face.
It looks like I was eating Sour Patch.
Sour Patch.
I like Sour Patch. But do you know who's been eating a lot of Sour Patch?
Why are there no Sour Patch adults? Because we eat all the Sour Patch kids.
That's whatever. Good one. Anyway, that was our impersonation of Landon Donovan. Well, in our perspective, there is strong cases either side, but I'm going to just disregard those cases and go with my opinion because I'm very subjective right here. And objective. Anyway, so Landon Donovan has said basically that if the United States lose to Mexico this weekend, one, he should not be coaching at the next World Cup and basically should be fired.
There's 3 quotes. We're going to read them back to back to back, starting with the first one. This is all in regards of Klinsmann. Jurgen said many times he wants our players to feel pressure. So if they lose a game, they can't go to the grocery store the next day. If they lose a game, they are getting hammered in the press. Next quote. Well, the same holds true for the coach, and so we had a very poor summer with bad results in the Gold Cup. The last game against Brazil was probably the worst game I've seen them play under Jurgen.
It's a friendly!
The reality is that now anywhere else in the world, if this coach had those results and they lose the game against Mexico, they'd be fired. Moving forward, I think if Jurgen wants to hold all the players to that standard, then he has to be held to that standard too. You know, it's funny because I had a little bit, when I reread those quotes, when I come back to those quotes, really what Donovan's trying to get at is if you're going to hold your players to a specific standard, you need to be held to that standard too. And there's really nothing wrong with saying that.
Yes, I agree.
Especially because leaders lead by example. That's such a major aspect to a strong leader. But, and I'm sure you're going to get into this more, yes, it was a friendly. Yes, Donovan was left off the 2014 World Cup roster for a guy like Julian Green. One of the specific reasons, I'm pretty sure, because they mentioned he came in as a sub.
And he scored. Against Belgium.
Yes. And would Donovan been useful? We don't know. It's like the one thing I wanted to state for this clip is that we don't know if Donovan would have made the goal that Wondolowski missed wide open. We don't know if Donovan would have made been the difference maker. Maybe yes. Maybe we get to the round of 8 of Donovan. Maybe no. Maybe we don't make it out of the group stage. There's no proof. There's no proof of what he would have done. But it happened. And now you hear this whole side of Landon Donovan, and of course we know he is biased against Jurgen Klinsmann.
Yes. So I'm going to just put this whole World Cup thing to bed really quick, right? So I appreciate a manager that takes risks. We've seen it before. We've seen, I think Theo Walcott was taken to a competition way earlier than he was expected. It didn't exactly pay off.
He was really young.
Yeah, really young. And that's what happens is you take those risks when you're a manager. When you're the United States, what have you got to lose? Are you expecting to go to the semi-finals and the final of the World Cup? You brought a guy like Julian Green, who was a phenomenal talent, to be honest, when he came on. And he had provided a spark. You just mentioned it there. I don't know if Landon Donovan would have scored that goal that Wondolowski missed. I don't know, but based on current form and form from what they've seen in MLS, Wondolowski was a good choice. He's breaking records as one of the most notorious goal scorers in MLS. So rightly so, you bring him. Donovan wasn't in peak form. Yes, he would have been instrumental and influential, but that's what coaches are there for as well. Green is there to try and to provide a spark, because Donovan would not have started. He would have come on off the bench some games, and he might have been influential and used his experience. But just the same token can be said about Green, who came on and got the United States back into that game against Belgium and was a threat throughout. So when you're looking at that, it was a good decision. And those are risks that sometimes pay off and they don't. And what you have to understand with an international manager, you don't get week in, week out with your players. You have to make these strong decisions. And if people are basing his current form on friendly results, then why are we not singing his praises for beating Netherlands and Germany? They beat those two teams
in friendlies. Season. Yeah, it's a really good point.
Last year, earlier in the year.
In friendlies, you
beat them in friendlies. So if you're saying that Brazil, let's just get out there. Brazil are a better team than the United States. I'm not saying that it was a good performance. They did not play well. But if you're based off friendlies, which is a fair assumption because you don't have a lot of games to base it around because you don't play week in, week out.
And what's interesting too is this weekend, U.S. versus Mexico for a spot in the 2017 Confederations Cup, which is a major game for U.S. National soccer, national football, whatever you want to call it. So, unfortunately, for any of the players and Klinsmann, no matter what happens, a win or a loss, it's going to be back to the recency bias I mentioned in a different clip. But that's all we're going to have to judge. This is the first really meaningful game with a lot of weight on it since since Jamaica in the what was it? Sorry.
The Gold Cup. And that was let me put this out there as well. When you are a national team, you got to take advantage of every competition, like Chile just did in the Copa America. Argentina should have. They didn't perform as well in the final, and that was a big loss for them. The US should have won the Gold Cup. They were by far one of the better teams. And to lose out to Jamaica in that game was a catastrophic loss. I said that. But that doesn't mean that Jurgen Klinsmann should be fired based on his overall performance as a coach. Because he holds his players to a high standard, I do believe he has to be held to a high standard as well. But the players were not performing up to their opposition, and you have to take some accountability for that as well, considering how well they played in the World Cup. And I say this with full honesty, they played well. The game when they played against Portugal was a great result. And they played like a team, and they played that way throughout. They had no right to qualify from that group against teams like Ghana, who notoriously were better in the World Cup previous.
They outpaced the US the whole match.
Germany, who went on to win the World Cup, and then Portugal, who had the best player in the world and still a good team. I'm not saying they're great. Everyone calls them world class. No, they're not. But they were still good. It was great to qualify from that group. And that is a huge plus. That's got to resonate well. It's the same people right now that are saying that Jose Mourinho should undeniably have been sacked already.
Recency bias.
Yes, recency bias. And it's a good case.
Pellegrini was going to be sacked all of last season. Look where Manchester City, at least they had a hot start to the season.
Well,
as one example.
Right
but two quick things. One, there was outcry from the peoples of the world, the Americans, public, who want to see better form out of U.S. national team soccer. Because Klinsmann stated a couple times that he wants to emulate Germany's
it's a good
form
goal,
and emulate Spain's form, and
yes.
when Spain was in peak form. Rome wasn't built in a day. The German well-oiled machine wasn't built in a day, and Spain's 2010 run to the World Cup was not built in a day. It takes time.
And so here's my point on that. How do you get to that level? Oh, yeah, you nurture the youth. So why are you criticizing someone for bringing in youthful players? Because you have to take those risks. They played a lot of youthful players in their friendlies against Netherlands and Germany. No one said shit about them.
Because they won. If they lost, people would only be saying shit.
And then they lose to Brazil, and they're like, oh my God, everything's catastrophic. You have to get all down. Donovan says that. Because exactly, when you lose to Brazil, that if you hold yourself to that high standard, fair play to you. That's a high standard to hold yourself to. But if he wants to get to that stage, to the Germanys and Spains of the world, Spain did not win a trophy until 2010 World Cup. They had not won a World Cup, and they nurtured their team. They brought through that style of football. It took years for them to get that way, and then they finally won it. And then when they dropped down in 2014, oh my God, Spain are shite.
But they were, in 2010, when you look back on those games, they were devastating. They were frighteningly good.
Yeah, they were amazing, phenomenal. And it took time to build that way. The US has the potential to be a great national team, but you have to start from the roots. The problem is not ultimately with managers. It's with your system. You don't develop enough good young soccer players. That's why you have to go and tap into the guys who are born across.
Well, where's Julian Green as that example? Is German, right? Okay.
So, and that is what teams like. That's what people like Scotland do. You have to do it. Because if you want to compete with the big teams, you have to get where the talent's coming from. So unless you change your core system and start having football be a primary factor in young people's lives, not suddenly, oh, he's good at soccer, I would throw him into baseball, I'd throw him into basketball, and then we'll throw him into football, and we'll see what one he picks up better.
Here's the most American elitist thing I can possibly say.
What?
It's America, Francis. Why can't we go buy Messi, Sterling, Suarez, give an American citizenship, and boom, 2018 World Cup with a front line of Suarez, Messi, Ronaldo, Boateng, free citizenships to them, just to them.
Okay, but they've already played for the national team, so Jason, you can't.
You can't?
You can't. Once they play, that's it. Once they're capped.
We can clone them. We can clone them. We'll find a way.
But you see what I mean? I do, and I wanted to stress the other case. I do agree if you hold your players to the standard, you have to hold yourself, so he needs to take the responsibility. I've never heard Klinsmann pull a Mourinho and deflect. Be like, no, it's
he takes it.
Like, he has to understand, he holds them to high regards. He will want to win this game more than anything. If they lose the game, yes, question marks will have to be brought up. And the worrying thing about an international game is you don't have, like, next week to make it up. You need to wait, and you need to rebuild again. So this game, they're going to be taking it crucially, but I don't believe that he should be sacked if they lose this game. Confederations Cup is a good competition to get into because it allows you to compete with the best again. And they don't often get that example until the next World Cup in 2018. But I just think that Landon Donovan, it's clear that he's holding his bias as basically the main reason for this argument. And if he didn't hold his bias to it, and he kind of made the argument like, I mean, to be fair, if he doesn't win this game and he's holding these players to high regard, he needs to really either own up to it, buck up his ideas, or change something. But he's basically like, oh, no, if they lose, then he needs to be fired. Because he never took me to.
And if he took that route, then it wouldn't be a story.
Yeah, exactly.
So we wouldn't be angry talking about it. By the way, real quick, Juan Carlos Osorio has replaced the interim coach for Mexico. He took the job. He was a coach of Sao Paulo's FC
Sao Paulo, yeah, he was a coach in Brazil, but he also coached
Thank
before in MLS. He had coached in Chicago Fire before, so
it should be interesting.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. The thing, I talked about this on 120. The thing is, it's not about him living up to the test. It's about whether Mexico can put their confidence in a manager. It's the exact same thing. Do you want, if you're going to go with the what Landon Donovan's saying about Klinsmann, you might end up with the rotation system that Mexico has. They barely hold on to a manager more than 2 years. And I mean, how long is it going to be before you get another guy that's like,
whoa,
it's Herrera.
Love Miguel Herrera. That's his face.
I know, he's a great coach. But you can't punch journalists. It's just the way it goes. Anyway, let us know what you think.
Why not?
Let us know what you think in the comment section below. Do you agree with Landon Donovan's comments? Do you think that if they lose against Mexico, Klinsmann will be out?
No.
Let us know. And come back to TYT Sports on Sunday because we will be recapping the big game, potentially with some interviews. So stay tuned for that only on TYT Sports.